Good evening, everyone. We'll give it a couple minutes for people to just populate in. I see it trickling in. So thanks everyone for joining. Um, we got some people from New Orleans, from Southern California, Oklahoma. So thank you for joining and keep it up. Love to see where you all are listening in from. So welcome to the Finca Chocolat Belize webinar. Kind of a little update and what we've been doing and what we've been up to. My name is David Kafka. I'm the principal of Caribbean Capital Group, and I oversee acquisitions, investment strategies, and business development. And I'll kind of go over my story. Um, Been living in Belize. Next week will be 15 years. I was a founder and manager of Super Green Incorporated, which was a successful landscape company in Charleston. And I sold it and moved here, like I said, going on 15 years ago. And we have been coming to Belize since early 2004. Serena, who was listening in and helping us on the back end, she grew up here. She was 11 when we moved here. And I have one of the largest Remax brokerages or largest brokerages in the country of Belize. I worked to build my brand and my business. And when I started, and within a couple years, I was in the top 100 of the Caribbean and Central America. And we have offices in Placencia, Hopkins, and Corozal. And when I was at an R4 convention, a Remax convention, I met the real estate guys who then introduced me to Robert Kiyosaki and that purple book that has changed so many lives. Then I got interested in syndication and investing. And then I spent hours and hours of classes and money and mentorship and all that. And then I put it into action. And today, Caribbean Capital Group is managing about $26 million in assets and the hospitality sector. And of course, that's Belize and including Finca. And then also on here, we have David. David, how you doing this evening, buddy?
Doing well. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thanks for joining us. So my name is David Santelli. I'm the majority shareholder in Finca Chocolat and the managing director, which basically means I try to solve all the problems no one else wants to. I came originally from the US. I had a management consulting firm in the US that I started and ran, sold that in 2003, moved to Belize full-time in 2006, and immigrated to the country over a couple of years. So I'm a Belizean citizen, dual national with the US and Belize. I was involved in the hospitality sector for a number of years, had a eco resort out on one of the more remote areas of the coastline. And then in 2015, got involved with agricultural for Finca Chocolat.
And then also we have Mike Pine. He's not on today, but we have some webinars that we can shoot you them on the chat box, or we can email them to you. And he is our CPA. He's based out of the Dallas, Texas area, and he has so much expertise, and he deals with a lot of high-end net worth individuals, startups, real estate investors, and people like that. So it's very important to know who the team is. And then, of course, my legal team, which is PLG out of California. So because of, the lawyers, this is a security. The lawyers kind of really want us to go over this general disclaimer that this information or this webinar is just really for informational purposes only. We will be giving some forward-looking statements that may, will, seek, should, expect, anticipate, and so on. But this is just for informational purposes only. Then you need to do your own due diligence and get on with us to, kind of really figure out if this investment is right for you, if you are really ready to move on. We were talking about the SEC. This is a registered 506C. C is in Charlie, which means that all the investors have to be accredited investors. The minimum investment right now is $20,000, which will probably go up pretty soon. And then we have the projected returns annualized between 12 and 14%. And what does it mean to be accredited, or what does 506C mean? So there's basically three ways to invest in something. You can do it the legal way, you can do it the illegal way, and then of course you can go to jail. So we're doing everything legal by a 506C. And basically that means that I cannot take your word for it that you're accredited. I have to do a third-party verification. I have a company that does that. And also, like we have some investors on tonight that sent me letters from their CPA, and we have a form template that we will give you. And we just need something like that stating that you are accredited. And what does accredited mean? It means that your net worth is over $1 million US, excluding your primary residence as an individual or with a spouse, or not both, but or your income is $200,000 or $300,000 if you're married with a partner in each of the prior 2 years, with the reasonable expectation to do that again in 2025. So this investment is in the country of Belize. We call Belize International Investing on training wheels because everything's in English. The contracts are in English. It's English is the primary language. It's the fastest growing market in the Caribbean. It's definitely the top tourist destination in the world. However, tourism only represents about 30% of the Belize GDP. Agriculture and seafood export is the second largest contributor to the GDP after tourism. Um, in 2023, agriculture did $148 billion Belize. So it's about 74 million US, or 148 million, sorry, Belize dollars, or 74 million US, just in the fourth quarter in 2023. With over 1.9 million acres of arable land, Belize is just so ripe for developing, investing in the agribusiness. Also, it's popular because it's close proximity to the US, close, strong international relationships with trade. We have a lot of trade partners in Taiwan, the European Union, England, the US, and things like that. It's a pretty stable government. It's a democracy with a two-party system, just kind of like the US. It is a English-speaking country, just like I mentioned. Large labor force. The currency is pegged to the US dollar, and the real estate's affordable with a high demand. Strong property rights, that's equally, no matter if you're a Belizean or a foreigner. And there's no capital gains tax, no estate tax, and only a 3% income tax on the farm revenue. So it's like 0.75% is the lowest tax, and then real estate's the highest at 15%. And so it's one of the T8 low tax jurisdictions. And Belize just possesses some of the very strongest privacy banking laws in the world. And of course, we know that the wealthiest top 1% invest in agriculture, and haven't been able to get any updated numbers. But in 2020, Bill Gates made a lot of headlines as becoming the largest private farmland owner in the US, with over 269,000 acres of farmland in 18 states. And it's no surprise that 30% of all farmland is owned by landlords. So they don't farm it themselves, they lease it out. And that happens here as well. And while I'm on this picture, all the pictures except for one are actual pictures of the farm. So when we're showing things, this picture came from the farm, this came from the nursery. This was me busting open a pod and eating the raw cacao. This is our drying facility. And we'll go over because now we're even expanding that. It's one of our tractors and trailers. So everything you see tonight is going to be from the farm except for one. And then also, agriculture is the world's largest industry. Global agricultural market grew from 12.2 billion to in 2022 to 13.3 billion in 2023. That's a GA or a CAGR of 9.4%. And farming requires a skilled workforce, and it's really got some science and art behind it. And we kind of went over that this week when I took Jared and Rhett out to the farm. A lot of skill. We have, gauges and things to measure the temperature of the beans and the water concentration. So it's not just, you go and pick and cut and do this and that. Um, so it's a combination of real assets as well, to include labor, equipment, natural resources like land, soil, air, sunlight, water. And as an industry, agriculture can be grouped with other real assets, such as forestry and timberland, real estate infrastructure, precious metals, industrial metals, equipment. So it's kind of a diversification. So you're just adding this as a diversification to whatever else you are invested in, whether it's a stock market or real estate, multifamily, whatever. And agriculture and land, the asset is always appreciating, even in downturns. It's always, we might have, a small downturn, but it's always going to come back up, because, what they say, God never makes or is not making any more land. So land's considered to be the asset with the longest life. And because of that, it can't be depreciated. You can't account for its cost by gradually reducing its value over its useful lifespan. We can, however, and we'll touch on this later, we can depreciate everything else, the trees, the tractors, the farm equipment, all that. The useful lifespan, of course, is eternal. It's always here, no matter what's going on, what president's in power, what virus is out there, no matter what. The land is always there. Acquiring stakes in agriculture is a long-term play that can help you maintain and grow wealth through land value appreciation. And again, we touched on it, the diversity of your portfolio with a long-term investment that can hedge against economic instability. And we touched on, that on the administration, elections, and things like that. So your investment is backstopped by the value of the land. So Caribbean Capital Group is proud to give you this unique opportunity. It's an attractive annual cash flow that is paid quarterly. You can get some depreciation on this, some long-term appreciation as the trees grow, as the value of the land grows. Of course, the appreciation of the investment will go up. You'll get some, we project high returns, especially given with the recent prices of the cacao market that we will touch on a little later on. Increasing crop yields as the trees grow older, we get more and more yield from those crops. So who is this investment for? This investment is for people who want a offshore portfolio diversity. You have everything in your, let's say the US, but you want to start kind of getting your feet wet in a foreign jurisdiction or offshore jurisdiction. You can, if you want to pass down generational wealth, the legacy, the story behind this, the conservative underwriting that we do as a team, hold a passive income investment. So we do all the work and we just pay you the dividends. We're helping to reforest the earth one tree at a time. So we're helping with the carbon, neutralizing the carbon footprint. It's an inflation hedge, especially in rocky times. And then socially, we give back to the community. Um, this area where the farm is has a very high unemployment rate. A lot of kids are not going to school because they can't afford it. So we're giving these people a good job. When we were there on Monday with
Mhm.
Rhett and them, we met one of the new employees. This was his second day, and he just unsolicited. He just said how much he enjoyed working at the farm. He loved doing this job, and he just and loved being here. So we have a great team, and that's what kind of makes this investment work is the team who is on the ground, and then the oversight of myself and David. So if these bullet points are attractive to you, then this might be the right investment for you. Finca is a 515-acre cacao, timber, and spice farm on the Barranco Road in the Toledo district of Belize, which is in the southern portion of the country. It is one of the two largest cacao farms in the country. And in the early 1990s, the previous owner cleared much of the property, clear-cutted it for a cattle ranch, and then he left Belize in the early 2000s, and then the farm kind of went into a small decline or a slow decline, and that's when David bought it in 2015. He put together a small group of investors and purchased the farm, rehabilitated it, and rebranded it as Finca Chocolat. So Dave, you want to kind of go into this slide?
Sure. Yes, thanks for the overview, David, and the introduction. This is the one picture that David mentioned that is not of the farm. And the very, and it's a little hard to capture what an agroforestry system is from an actual picture. So it's easier sometimes just to use a graphic, which is this one picture. So what we do at Finca Chocolat is we try to implement, maximize the value per acre by having three different levels of the farm. We have the canopy, which is the hardwood at the top. We have the cacao, which is in the middle, and banana, plantain, some other crops. And then we have turmeric, lemongrass, and vanilla, which are mostly the understory crops. So that we're using each square foot, each square meter of the farm on three different levels and thereby maximizing the return. All of these items have a symbiotic relationship with each other, again, so that we can make the most return we can off the acres. So what crops are on the farm? The commercial crops that we're focused on right now are cashew, lemongrass, vanilla, turmeric, and cardamom, banana and plantain, and rosewood, in addition to the main two crops, which are cacao and hardwood trees. There's actually three types of hardwood trees, and we'll get into that later, but the primary hardwood tree that we're growing at Finca Chocolat is psalmwood. Its scientific name is Cordia aleodora. There's some other crops on site, including soursop, breadfruit, coconut, achiote, pigeon pea, and bamboo, and we'll get into why we have these on site later in the process, in this presentation. Everything that we grow is feeding back into itself. So all of these crops contribute to the biodiversity at Finca. For example, we use the leaf from the banana and the plantain while we're fermenting the cacao. We line the wooden boxes with that. It helps add some of the yeast that kickstarts the fermentation process and helps insulate the fermentation as well. We use the bamboo and the offcuts from some of the hardwood to produce biochar. Biochar is a soil amendment that helps improve aeration, the solubility of the soil. It retains water and gives a home to microorganisms to live. Lemongrass, for example, when we grow the lemongrass to break up some of the areas that had been compacted by cattle historically, we distill it and make lemongrass oil. We also sell some fresh lemongrass on site, and we'll talk more about that later. But then we don't just throw it out. We compost that with the biochar and then recycle it all back into the environment, into the soil at Finca. I want to talk a little bit of the cacao market in general. if you've been paying attention at all to the commodity market in cacao, it's been going crazy for the last 2 years. And crazy might not be the right word. I think it's actually been normalizing a little bit for the last, 50, 60 years or more. Um, Farmers in cacao have been abused, to be honest with you. They've been well underpaid. Farmers in Africa, which produces most of the cacao in the world, are making $1 a day, $1.50 a day US. So the prices have been kind of artificially held low by some of the systems. That's come to a change here recently. This is February 4th pricing 2 days ago. On Tuesday was what, 11,031 when I happened to take this picture, this graph. But there are two basic markets for cacao. And historically, there's been fine flavor cacao and commodity cacao. There were supply shortages of commodity cacao in 2023 and 2024. Most of that cacao is produced in Ivory Coast and Ghana. Those shortages have been due to disease, flooding, lack of rain, aging crops, which is a huge issue in Africa, and gold mining, which they've been going in and just kind of taking out cacao farms illegally and mining for gold and destroying the land. So all of this has kind of come into play for the last couple of years and has driven up the price significantly for commodity cacao. We are in the fine flavor market, which is nice because when the commodity cacao market was selling at $3,000 and $4,000 a ton, we were able to sell at multiples of that. Now that the commodity market has raised the playing field for everyone, it's better for us. We don't need it to make money, but of course our returns and margins are much better. I don't think this is going to change for the next 4 to 5 years, and we'll get into the timing of cacao, but it takes 5 years for a cacao tree to mature. No one planted a lot last year. They thought it was an effect of weather in Africa, I should say. There were some plantings in South America that increased, but this rising tide basically opens up 100% of the market to Finca Chocolat. So instead of looking at 15% of the market, we can now sell our product at prices that work very well for us, that are 2 or 3 times what we had thought when we started this back in 2015, to anyone. So it's increased our marketability substantially, and I don't see that changing for the next 4 to 5 years. Okay. So chocolate consumption has increased exponentially over the last couple of decades. We talked about the lapse in supply and the current worldwide decline in cacao production. We have currently 100,000 trees in cultivation at Finca Chocolat. So a lot of the work for our farm has already been done. When you're looking at trees, you're looking at decades in your plans. You're not looking at years or months for sure, definitely not weeks. So because it takes 5 years for cacao trees to grow, not all this 100,000 trees is mature at this point. But with the 100,000 trees that we have in right now, Finca Chocolat would be successful and profitable without a problem once they mature. Some of them are already mature. That's what we've been selling for the last couple of years. We are planting an average of 15,000 trees a year until we hit 180,000 trees. So we'll have about another 5 years worth of planting to go. The last couple of years actually last year we put in almost 18,000 trees. This year we're putting in a few less because we're focusing on a little bit of maintenance and upkeep for some of the younger trees this year. Depending on funding, we may increase that for 2026. We'll see how it goes. But each year on average, about 15,000 of our trees reach maturity. Just to give you an idea, in 22 and 23, when the cacao pricing was basically around $2,000, $2,500 a ton, Finca Chocolat was selling all of its cacao at $6,000 US plus a ton. So that was the difference between the fine flavor market and the commodity market. Those numbers have come more into line with each other with the price increase in the commodity markets. We can't sell at 22 or 33,000, but we're selling 12, 13,000 without a problem at this point in time. In 2024, we sold all of our cacao at 8,500 a ton. I literally just got an order today from a former customer in Taiwan who's looking to pick up a couple tons, and I told him, it's 13,000 this year, and they're like, okay, well, why are you the money? So, the market is tight and everyone understands that. It's a good time to be a producer of cacao. And we have more demand than we can supply currently. And I don't think that's going to change it cannot change for at least 4 to 5 years. If you planted a tree today, it will not produce well enough to change this market reality for at least 4 years. what we do at, excuse me, a lot of people will talk about how many acres they have. I much prefer to talk about how many trees we have because, if I plant 5 trees per acre versus someone planting 400 trees per acre, it's a huge difference in the amount produced per acre. So if you talk to someone, they say, "Oh, I've got 1,000 acres in cacao." Ask them how many trees that equates to. Okay, at Finca Chocolat, we plant on a 10-foot by 12-foot grid, which gives us 400 trees per acre. As I said, it takes about 5 years for a cacao tree to mature, and they yield about 1.5 pounds of dry cacao on average. We're growing Trinitary cacao, which is a fine flavor variety. The commercial lifespan for cacao trees is about 30 years. Could be a little longer, could be a little shorter. It really just depends on the climate, what's happening, how they're cared for. In Belize, the annual harvest of cacao will result in a steady cash flow, as we've talked about, while we're waiting for the hardwoods to mature. So unlike just investing in a teak farm where you're waiting for 20, 25 years to get something at the end, we are looking to not only cover our costs, but distribute dividends back to everyone involved along the way. The harvest in Belize runs typically from December to June. And all of our post-harvest processing is done on site. So we do all of our own fermentation, all of our drying, all of our packaging to ensure quality. Okay, which is significant. There are a lot of brokers in the world that go out and take cacao that they don't know anything about, and sometimes it's less than desirable. I'm going to go back over this. I've said this a couple times, but just to give you a quick understanding of what we do. In the first year, we start a nursery every year, and we will, like I said, for about the next 5 years until all of our acreage is planted out in February or March, where we grow the trees on site from seed so that we can control every input that goes into the trees. They're planted out the following August to November. They're usually about 2 feet tall at that point in time. The second year, they're tended to in the fields. There's not much to do with them except for control the weeds and structurally prune at the end of year 2, early in year 3, so that you're trying to form like a nice kind of wine glass shape out of the tree. In year 3, again, there's some pruning and the fields are tended to. There's a few pods that you might see. I think you guys saw a tree that was about 2.5 years old, Dave, that was producing.
Yep.
It does happen, but you can't count on that. So all our projections run at us starting to really produce at year 5. It's nice if we get a little more production early, but it's not something one should count on when they're investing in cacao. At year 4, the trees start to canopy, which is great because that means there's less weed control, there's less maintenance of the grounds under the tree, so they're blocking out the sun so that you don't have to worry about all the weeds competing with the trees themselves. And in year 5, the trees come in to complete their canopy and are fully mature and are producing at capacity or near full capacity. Years 6 to 30, the trees are producing at full capacity. They require pruning and annual weed control, but the weed control is nominal as the canopy has formed and the leaf litter helps to suppress the weeds. The picture you see on the right here is an example of a mature tree during this time of the year, during the harvest season. And that's exactly what you want to see. You want to see a lot of pods, not a lot of weeds, good sunlight at the top and exposed limbs at the bottom for the pods to come through on. Okay, thanks. So we have a second crop that we are currently bringing in income from at Finca Chocolat. As Dave mentioned, this had been a cattle ranch, and there were about 40 acres of the property that had been truly compacted from the cattle over time, where we found cacao just did not grow well. Thankfully, the hardwood trees grow great, so we put hardwood into those areas as well. And we started growing lemongrass so that we could produce lemongrass oil. This lemongrass is also it's a superfood. It has antioxidant and anti-inflammatory health benefits, which kind of aligns with our marketing of cacao. It can be distilled into an essential oil. And this was crucial for my decision to go into this because everything that we do on our farm can be dried or condensed and packaged in a way to hold and ship at the time of our choosing. So we are not, with farming, a lot of times people are a slave to the season. If you grow tomatoes or peppers or strawberries, when it's ripe, you have to sell it. And it doesn't matter what the market will bring at that point in time, you have to sell it before it spoils. All of our stuff can be processed, held, and kept for a year or two if we need to ensure that we maximize the pricing. And to be honest with you, I do this quite often. I wait until the fall to sell. because we can always get 15% more than the guys who are selling the spring because everyone's harvesting in the spring. In the fall, everyone's out of cacao. Looking forward to the next season. Um, why did we pick this? I talked about this a little bit. It fits our multi-strata agroforestry system. So it gives us an understory crop. It's value-added processing. We tested this on site, and this is the point I want to make. We don't jump into anything at Finca until we test it. So we tested this with a small area in 2023. The plants did really well. Our team did great with them. And we have expanded that aggressively and will do so again. So, before we jump in anything, you'll see this with the hardwoods as well. We do a little test. We make sure that we understand the plant. We make sure that it works on our site. We're currently selling the fresh lemongrass to a company called Nolito, which makes what they call Fiva grass iced tea. In Belize, lemongrass is called fever grass. And we are just starting up right now with our distillation facility. So they're just finishing the plumbing this week, but we'll be producing lemongrass oil here by the end of the month.
Very good. I was gonna tell you, uh, Nolito, they got into all Whole Foods, I was told,
Right.
yesterday. Do you know that?
I think I saw something that she put up about that.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Although they're not shipping this product to Whole Foods yet, but hopefully in the future.
Yeah, so the opportunity that we're gonna do is, there's 600 shares. The starting share amount is $20,000 a share. Our projected returns are 12 to 14%, and it's 600 shares, right? And no more. It's not like a fractional reserve system like the US money where the 600 will turn into 1,200. Once we sell out, we'll sell out. Once invested, there are no additional or hidden fees. When the trees reach their life expectancy of around 30 years, they are removed and new trees are planted. And at that time, there'll probably be a replanting fee, if you will. The intent is to replant out of the existing cash flow of the harvest of some of the hardwood trees and not bill that to the investors. The managers, they manage the farm, pay the bills, harvest the crops, keep the weeds at bay, sell the cacao, sell the lemongrass oil, and the investors receive 80% of the income after the expenses, and then us as managers will take the 20%. And again, as David mentioned before, we're always having repeat guests. People love our product. And as you can see below, um, we get very good reviews. How many places are we selling, Dave? It's like 4 countries or five
Yeah, so
continents,
we're
I think?
selling to Taiwan, the US. We sell locally in Belize, Honduras, and we have sold a little bit, but I don't see this continuing to Australia, and Spain as
Okay,
well.
so 6 places. So
But
very good.
mainly we're focused right now on Taiwan, Belize, the US, with some smaller orders coming through in other places. But they're not guests, David. You say guests, they're paying clients.
Yes,
Make
yes,
those guys pay.
yes, exactly, exactly. Um, So the chocolate hardwood spices is a very strong market. We kind of already went over the global cacao market is projected to grow at just at 4% during 21 to 28. It's estimated to reap a revenue worth $187 billion by 2027. And then the global rise in chocolate consumption is at an all-time high, as people talk about it and it's a superfood like David mentioned earlier. Social media advertising strategies have really changed people's mindset on chocolate in general. And again, it's because of the health benefits is why it's escalating. And same with the lemongrass, the turmeric, and all that. Um, the pandemic has really caused people to be more health conscious, to really look at the ingredients, see what kind of sugars or additives there are, and they're really switching to a higher cacao, content with less sugar, less additives, and things like that. And of course, it reduces high blood pressure, lowers the risk of heart attack, stroke, improves your moods, symptoms of depression, and many, many other things that chocolate does for you. And of course, we know that the population there's a lot of places in decline, but there's a lot of places that are growing. And it's estimated that by 2050, the population will be about 11.2 billion people. So we're kind of positioning ourselves to be a part of that growing solution of the timber, of the chocolate market, the hardwoods, the lemon oil, and all that. Again, every tree, we're very conscious that every tree helps reduce our carbon footprint. The lemongrass oil, the vanilla, cardamom, black cacao are all high margin, high perishable foods or, groups. Um, that's kind of what we like, long shelf life and high value um, of that. Again, here's some pictures. This is the bags that you can kind of see behind me here that we use. Um, it's the dry cacao bags. This is,
Was just
go ahead,
when we
Dave.
got through this, Dave, this was the picture at the top left there was a shipment that we sent to a distributor that we started working with in the US. We sent a container up to him last year. That's selling great this year. The guy, he's already ordered another 5 tons for this year plus. So we'll see how that goes. The bottom left there is cacao in the nursery. Those are probably about 3 months old at that point in time. I think you saw part of this picture before. The next one to the right is what a cacao pod looks like with the beans inside. With the white mucilage, it's kind of well, it's called mucilage. It's a slimy coating around the beans, which is full of sugar. It helps us during the fermentation process. It's really sweet. If you ever get on site, definitely try it, but don't swallow the beans. I heard some people did that recently. Um, this is a 2.5, the one in the center here is a 2.5-year old Somwood tree. So this is something that we started, from seed, and this is 2.5 years later. The guys are Mayan who are working on the farm for the most part. So they're not the tallest guys in the world, but they're not midgets either. So there gives you some scale for, what happens in 2.5 years of these trees. Top right is vanilla. We start vanilla vines in the nursery. We double them basically. We're doubling the vines every 4 months or so. Right now, we're keeping a lot of them in the nursery because I'm using it to increase our number of plants. But some of them are putting out on the trees, which is the picture on the right here. And we'll talk about vanilla in a little bit later. The next picture at the bottom there is a Somwood tree that had just been planted out in the field. It's probably about 7 months old, 6 or 7 months old. So you get a good idea for between, half a year and 2.5 years, what happens to these trees. And then the bottom right picture is one of our guys um, dividing lemongrass to plant out. Lemongrass is great because it will grow in 4 to 6 months enough that we can divide the plant and double it. So we can, if we have an acre, 6 months later we can have 2 acres out of that, and 6 months later we have 4 acres if we choose to. And we propagate them both by division and by seed. So it's pretty easy to scale that one up quickly, which is great. What have we, so we've been doing this now, Dave, we started this in 2023. We're just shy of about 2 years into the process. What have we done with the money we've gotten so far? I think that's a question that everyone's always asking me, at least, Dave. I don't know about you, but we built a new fermentation facility with 600% more capacity. We also built a new drying facility with 150% more capacity. We expanded our partner network. So we started working with farmers in the area that we're also working with their cacao and processing it and selling some of that on under a different line. Most of that we're selling locally in Belize, while we're exporting all of the cacao that we have grown from the nursery through production at Finca, because we've controlled the whole process and we know exactly what the quality is of it. We built what I'm calling a lab level distillation and cacao processing facility. So both of these are just completed here in the last month or two. At the top right is the cacao processing, and the middle and the left is the distillation facility. They will meet our needs for the next year to year and a half. If things go well with those, as we project that they will, we will probably build a larger facility, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We purchased the distillation equipment, which is not cheap, um, and got all the authorizations because you can make moonshine out of this just as easily as lemongrass oil. So the government was very nosy into what we were doing, but we passed all the tests and, and did what we needed to do. There's enough moonshine in Belize already. We don't need to make any more of that, or enough rum, I should say, not moonshine. We added storage for an additional 20 tons of cacao, and we established distribution in the US with a company called Meridian Cacao that's been in business since 2010. And we increased staffing on site so that we can do more maintenance, more planting, more upkeep of the fields. If you're interested in any of the more background on this, you can check our blog on the website under field notes, and there's a write-up on all of this with more pictures. Okay. What are we looking to do? What are we trying to do in the future? As Dave said, some of the financial highlights, there's really two parts of this, and this is important to me. I want to make sure that we don't gloss over the social and environmental impact that we have. But to focus on the financial highlights, because this is a webinar focused on people looking to invest, we're looking at an average of about of 12% plus. Our numbers actually come in higher, but I like to conservatively use this 12% number because it's a number that I feel that even if things don't go exactly as we hope, we'll be able to deliver. Expected returns, well, I'm sorry, returns are expected to continue into perpetuity. And what I mean by that is a lot of the hard work has been done. I talked about this earlier, but planting the trees initially and waiting the first 5 years for them to mature is really the financially draining part of this endeavor. Okay, so we are coming out the other end of that now, which is fantastic. We've got some trees that are mature. We've got enough trees in the ground that when they're all mature, will be profitable, and we should be, making a decent return in 2026 or 2027. It's going to depend on the weather and how the trees are doing. Vanilla and cacao derivatives are not included in the financial projections, so we'll talk about this in a minute in some of our future plans. But all these projections include right now are the lemongrass and the sale of cacao. The social and environmental impact that we have is not insignificant. And I just want to touch on this for a minute. David alluded to the fact that this area of Belize has a very high unemployment rate. So one of the things that gives me a lot of personal satisfaction out of this is that we're creating jobs for people that are then able to send their kids to school. We talked about this. School is not free in Belize after sixth grade, basically. So it doesn't seem like a lot when you're sitting in the US drinking $8 Starbucks, but if you can afford a couple $100 to send 3 or 4 of your children to school annually versus having them have to go to work in your own fields. We don't hire anyone under 18 on our farm, but a lot of these kids don't have a lot of choices without a decent education. So I love the fact that we're able to present an opportunity for a steady job with a steady paycheck. Belize is unique in Central America in a lot of ways because our workers have vacation pay, they get Social Security pay, they get health benefits. We had a guy from Guatemala come visit us a couple years ago, and he asked me why we did certain things the way we did, or why we didn't do other things. And I said, well, we can't afford to hire 40 guys to do this job because you're paying them $7 a day and we're paying them 4 times that. So, the market in Central America is still not great, even though it is better than Africa for a lot of people. Belize is better than most, I should say. So we're reforesting an area that had been deforested previously. The biodiversity that we've seen increase on the farm has been fantastic. Every tree we plant adds to the carbon sequestration, which is not insignificant overall, but really it also from kind of leading back in the financial highlights, it helps us sell the cacao in the fine flavor marketplace at a higher margin, right? Because the people that we're selling to, the story is important to them. They want to know that this is something that is beneficial beyond being good cacao in and of itself. And this is something that's often overlooked, but we are a model for successful regenerative agricultural practices. And we won a grant in 2022, I think, from the Caribbean Export Development Agency, because we were modeling practices that could be scaled by others. We don't go in and slash and burn, which is a lot of the type of farming that happens in southern Belize. We're showing people that, okay, if you can make good money and a good return, it might not come quite as quick. You might not make it off of corn or beans this month, but you're going to make 3 times the amount you make if you can get yourself through a couple of years. of a different process. What we're seeking the equity investment for to do in the future, we need to build, almost certainly, we're going to build a larger HACCP certified processing facility for cacao and storage facility, which will allow us to take the cacao derivatives like butter, powder, nibs, and couverture, produce them on site, and then store and then export them for 2 or 3 times the margin that we can get off cacao itself. You saw that we did increase our drying capacity. We could use double what we did, so we need more drying capacity. We can make do in the short term without it, but as our production increases over the next few years, we will definitely have to add more drying capacity. I'd like to see us expand our partner network a little bit more and bring more partner farms in to work with us. There's always equipment that needs to be purchased. We'd like to install a fuel depot. This is a big one. We need to prepare areas for vanilla and import vines. The vanilla that's in Belize, there's local vanilla, but it is not the vanilla that is sought after for the highest price. So we will, like some of the other farms in Central America, import vines from vanilla because the margin's just much better on them. We need to upgrade the water and electrical system. I'd like to see us invest in solar so that we're not relying on the grid as much. The grid in Belize is questionable. David and I actually met with the Minister of Energy a year and a half ago at the investment summit, and we were trying to convince them to put a 40 megawatt power plant in on site at Belize, and I'm still pursuing that. But whether that happens or not, I'd like to see us invest in solar on site. We need to hire and train teams for processing cacao and vanilla, and if we have the funds, we can. This one's a little bit interesting. We will more rapidly plant the remaining acreage, but we won't go crazy on that. If someone gave us $1 million tomorrow, we wouldn't plant 200 acres next year. We might plant 20,000 trees or 23,000 trees instead of 15. But there's just a limited number of what you can realistically do in any season, given some of the weather conditions and the constraints. It doesn't make sense to invest enough money to double or triple that. Sometimes you can do 20% more, 30% more, but doubling or tripling means 3 new tractors and a whole new crew and done second shift and all that stuff. And then gain economies of scale. If and when we sell enough units that we have planted out all of the acreage, Dave and I have talked about this. We'll probably go out and do this again. We'll probably buy another 300 or 400 acres and repeat the process because the economies of scale in farming are great. I want to make this point. Finca has no outstanding debt. We've never taken a loan. We talked about this. We have customers in Asia, North America, and Central America. We're cash positive now, and we will be profitable once the trees that are in cultivation mature. So if we did nothing but maintain the trees that were in the ground right now, we'd be fine. I'm kind of an impatient bastard, so I'm trying to do it a little faster than that, which is why we're talking to you guys. Where are we going from here? What's next? Okay. I'm happy to say that kind of as of this webinar, this is the first one I think I can truly say this at. The cacao is on track. We've got this thing on lock. We know exactly what we're doing. We know, what month we're starting the nursery, what's happening, what's going to happen 6 months down the road. So we're starting to look at what are we going to do next. And I've alluded to some of this, but our midterm growth plan is really focused on vanilla and value-added cocoa products. So vanilla, we have on site right now, Mexican plants that we're doubling. Like cacao, it can be dried and stored, so spoilage is not an issue. It really aligns with the cacao market. So there's almost no extra marketing cost. The people who buy cacao buy vanilla, and will easily buy our crop if we can produce it and in a good manner. So I like the fact that we won't have to, if we market to one, we market to the other without hardly anything except for saying we also have this. Would you like some? We will become, I hope, one of the major producers of vanilla in Belize, as we are already a major producer of cacao. And again, this vanilla has not been added into the financial projection. So if we can make that happen, our return should be above 12%. But we'll see. We'll see where we go with investment and how quickly this comes onto line. Something that we are doing right now is we are processing our cacao, some of it, into nibs, butter, mass, and couverture, as well as powder. And we are using what we're processing right now to send to our distributor in the US, who's sending out samples to his clients so that we can take orders for 2020 the 25-26 season. Um, and based on that, we will possibly scale up that production facility. Um, like I said, we're currently processing cacao with an expert chocolatier. We brought in someone a couple months ago who is was really excellent in her chocolate production. She's got a lot of experience. She's a professional taster. She gets asked to go to Europe and do competition judging and tasting. So we're super happy to have her. We have orders right now in Asia and US for this on a limited scale. And I really think that we're going to be able to drive this up very quickly here in the next year or two. Again, cacao derivatives have not been added to the projections and the finances. So these are two things that I think within the next 24 months, um, we should be able to increase our margins pretty significantly on. Okay. Long-term growth plans. We're literally growing this long-term growth on site. So we're growing 3 types of hardwood trees: the psalmwood, something called barber jalote, and rosewood. At maturity, the return from the hardwood trees will be more than the 20 years of cacao production. So the hardwood trees are a big part of our overall plan and are a big part of the return that come into investors. But as I had said earlier, I'm impatient and I don't want to wait 25 years to start seeing the first returns come in. So, we're trying to make it so that we see returns coming in from the cacao during that whole cycle while the hardwood grows. And when we harvest the hardwood, the returns will be substantial. So we plant these on a 30 by 30 foot grid. Hardwoods, Somewood's a beautiful hardwood used in boat decking, furniture, and cabinetry. It's sometimes a substitute for mahogany or teak. It grows up to about 114 feet tall, and it's got about a 23 to 25 year maturity range. So it aligns nicely with the cacao. Rosewood, for its part, is a little more finicky to grow, but it's native to Belize. It's a beautiful wood and is one of the more valuable woods in the world. So we plant as much of that as we can every year, but they're a little more finicky. The psalmwood, I know if we put in 5,000 trees or 5,500 trees, we're going to get 96% germination rate on those. The rosewood is a little more hit or miss with the seeds, but we plant as much rosewood as we can every year as well. As I had said, we started everything with a little bit of a test. In 2021, we planted 350 psalmwood trees. 97% were alive and doing well the next year. So 2022, we invested a decent chunk and put in 3,500 trees. Then we tested the rosewood and barber jalote. In 23, we planted another 3,500 psalmwood and 2,000 rosewood and 500 barber jalote. The barber jalote are even more finicky than the rosewood. Again, it's a beautiful tree. It's highly figured. It's very decorative. It's a wood that's very easy to sell to artisan woodworkers, but we don't put a lot of energy and time into it comparatively because the success rate is not as great. So we're always focused on the numbers and what makes sense, and what we should be doing for a return at the end of the day. In 25, we'll be planting at least 5,000 psalmwood trees, and we'll be shooting for 1,000 plus rosewood trees. We're probably not going to plant any more barber jalote at this point because they're a little bit finicky. By the end of 2026, we've got 2 more planting cycles. We will have planted out most of the acreage available for hardwoods at Finca Chocolat. And these trees, as I said, will align with the life cycle of the cacao, so that as the cacao is in need to be replaced, we will go in and harvest the hardwood trees. We will mill it on site and produce lumber and then sell the lumber rather than selling the raw logs, because again, the return is much greater. And that will align with us replanting the cacao when needed. David had said that there will be a replanting fee that we will almost certainly be able to take out of the proceeds because we'll be doing it concurrently with the hardwoods. So unless there's some calamity between now and then, I don't see anyone having to put out any cash to redo that, but we'll see where we are. 20 years is a long time from now. We do also plant mahogany on site. The guys love to plant mahogany. It's a national tree of Belize. We'll all be dead before any of these mature, but hopefully you guys leave the shares to your grandkids and they'll be able to see some return on those. It's a beautiful tree. It's nice to have. So the farm layout, it's a little hard. I know we have a couple of people who are just at the farm. You guys probably saw, maybe 1/10, 1/5 of the farm. Um, the thing is huge. When I bought it, honestly, I didn't understand how huge it was until I walked around it. But and 12 hours later, I came back home and I was like, that was a long walk. But going over this, the green area is planted currently with hardwoods and cacao. It's the more mature area of the farm. The blue area is planted with hardwoods and lemongrass. That was the area where a lot of the cattle were kept that I told you was very compacted. The cacao does not do well there, but the hardwoods and lemongrass do, thankfully. The yellow area is planted in 2021 under existing canopy. So that'll come online. Those are about 15,000 trees and some up by the top by 24. That'll come online next year. They'll be mature next year. The purple triangles plus the hash 22 beside it, 15,000 trees went in there in 2022, 23 and 24. This is not quite as pretty because we had the farm mapped out by a drone agency. We didn't do the forested area. It wasn't easy to do. So it's not quite as pretty. You see my horrible graphic design over there. But and then the area above 24 will be planting in 25 and 26. We did more than we thought in 24, so we might finish all of that this year. We'll see what happens. The remaining blocks will be planted with the hardwood trees in 25 and 26 in preparation for future cacao sites. So, we try to stay ahead of the cacao by about 2 or 3 years because the sawwood provides shade for the cacao to grow under 2 or 3 years after planting.
We also do discovery tours. We just had Jared and Rhett come down, and they graciously brought us, a bottle and gave Rupert the nice one there. He wanted to put it in the house and not use it, so he was so happy that they brought that and was so thankful for that. But we do trips. We'll do probably two this year. We only have one really kind of set right now, and it's a 4 day, 3 night discovery tour where you kind of see a lot in a short amount of time. Because you're coming to check out the farm, it's an investor expense, so it's a write-off. I mean, I'm not a CPA, so let me just throw that disclosure in for my lawyers. But check with your CPA because you should be able to write that off. We give you a little bit of rest and relaxation, and the hotel we stay at is on the ocean. We give you round trip airfare from Belize City to Placencia. We provide the food, the local alcohol, beer, sodas. We do a snorkeling trip. Um, we either do a snorkeling trip or the coxcomb where you can hike and swim. We spend a good bit of time at the farm. We do a chocolate experience where you can make your own chocolate, and we go see an archaeological Mayan ruin, and all transportation, fuel, and all that is provided with all the fees for the archaeological site, things like that. It's $997 a person, and the next tour is May 8th through 11th. So the only thing you got to pay for is basically your hotel, your airfare, and any tips you want to give to your waitresses and things like that. Um, and if you can't make that, then you can just give us a call like these guys did, Rhett and Jared, and we gave them a private tour. So you can always do that. I think I have another one coming up at the end of February. But we do a lot of networking here. It's a bunch of like-minded people. We talk about banking, we talk about how to take title in all this, and we look at a little bit of real estate, not much, nothing's for sale on that trip except for we're just showing you the farm. There's no agenda except for just showing you the farm, meeting the team, meeting how great everything is, and um, and we just love to have you on this tour. And the way to sign up, Sereno or Mitch will throw it in the chat box, how to sign up. There are limited spots for that because of the hotel size and the van size. So what are your next steps? you can take a picture of this and or they'll put it in the chat box to CaribbeanCapitalGroup.com, portfolio Finca Chocolat, and you can get the business plan, the PPM of everything we went over. You can schedule a call with myself. We're going to take some questions in a minute. So if you have some questions, feel free to throw them in the chat box or question and answer box. Thank you for, attending. Again, the farm tour is May 8th through the 11th. Um, we'll be we'll still be harvesting toward the end of harvesting, and you'll get to see the nursery and all that as well. So it'll be kind of a good time to come. And again, feel free to email me any questions. I kind of run the syndication side of the farm, and Dave kind of runs the operations and things like that. You can email us together and ask us questions, and I'll chime in on my part. Dave will chime in on his part.